what we're going to do today is talk about how cancer originates, some of the very basic stuff. Now, obviously, some of this is technical, so feel free to ask me a lot of questions because I have a certain map in mind, but it will be great if all of you ask me questions as well. So we'll structure the talk in like 3 modules, where first I'll talk about what cancer is. I'll tell you the properties of cancer, what we see in normal versus cancer cells. And the second module is where we actually go into why things are happening and how and what gets affected, right? And in the last few minutes, we'll talk about what treatment modalities exist and how we can approach treating cancer and stuff. So again, repeating, feel free to ask me a lot of questions, type them out. It's okay if they are random questions. It's always nice to have discussions. All right. So before we begin today's talk, I want everybody to also understand a few concepts which I'm going to tell you in the next 2 slides, right? So first, all of most of the cells in our bodies, not all obviously, some people might tell me that, have all right, this is okay, have what we call this organelle as the nucleus, right? So most of the cells of our body have a nucleus, and this nucleus contains chromosomes. Now the chromosomes are made up of this polymer called as DNA. Now the DNA, as some of you might know, is a long polymer with a certain sequence of alphabets, as we call them. These alphabets are A, T, G, and C. I've seen that some of you have already heard and probably even know what these are. So the basic structure of the DNA, of the functionality of the DNA, is the gene, which is made of a particular sequence of these alphabets, and these then code for proteins, right? So for example, now we have our DNA, which has a particular sequence. It goes on to make something called as a messenger RNA, and this is then converted or translated into a protein. So a particular sequence in the DNA translates to a particular sequence in the protein. So now the interesting question is, what you guys should also think about is, what will happen if I change this, right? If I change the sequence in the DNA, what should it do to the protein that it encodes for? So what all of you must here realize, that a change or a damage or any modification to the gene on the DNA will directly lead to a change in the protein sequence, right? So any damage, it's called a mutation in technical terms, or it's sort of anything which plays around with the structural stability of DNA is called a mutation. It will also reflect in the final proteins. Is this okay with everybody? Questions so far? None, no questions.
Okay. Sounds fantastic, Omkar. Sounds fantastic. I mean, you were born for this job.
Okay, that's a huge compliment to get at the start of a talk, but okay.
But truly, Snail and I are a little insecure at this point.
All right. Okay, so if mutations, DNA and protein is okay, then let's move on to the topic of today's talk, right? So the topic of today's talk is cancer. Now, you all might know that Dr. Karishma has done an MBBS, right? So if you ask a clinician what cancer means, they'll tell you these 2 lines, right? Cancer is a disease where some cells in our body grow uncontrollably and they spread to other parts. So as long as there is the spread to other parts, the clinician will call it a cancer. Because if there is no spread to other parts, if it is just a disease, if it's just a case where cells are growing uncontrollably, we'll come to why they're growing uncontrollably in a few minutes. But take my word for it, if it is the case that the cells are growing uncontrollably in a mass, it is called a tumor. It is not called cancer. So we call it cancer only when the tumor metastasizes. Now, this is also something that I'm going to talk about. So just take my word for it for now. So what happens basically is, as you can see in the left side panel here, that normal cells divide, they divide continually. And if there is some damage which cannot be repaired, so cells will have their own ways to repair things to, I would want to see at least a few faces. So let me change the interface in a bit. Okay, that's great. Right. So when cells get damaged to an extent where they cannot be repaired, now that is when the cells commit suicide. It is called apoptosis. It is also called programmed cell death. So you damage a cell, it will try to repair itself. If it is not able to repair itself, a normal healthy cell will decide, okay, I am too damaged, let me die. So the cell will die off. And this is body's defense mechanism against things going wrong and for diseases like cancer to progress. What happens in cancer is the cell division that happens, regardless of whether the cell is damaged or not, will keep happening. And we'll come to why this happens. But this keeps happening such that in whatever state the cells are in, they will form a nice mass clump ball of cells, which I've told you is called a tumor. Now, you might also read the word malignant tumor here, which means malignancy means the tumor is capable of spreading to other parts of the body. So there is another kind of tumor called benign tumor that does not spread. So the clinician will not call it cancer. He will just, or she will just call it a tumor. A malignant tumor is something that spreads to other part, right? So a normal healthy cell in all the normal circumstances will grow, and it will form this nice, beautiful, healthy tissue where there is proper cellular organization. All cells are functioning well. They are looking healthy. And if something goes wrong, they will die. But that does not happen in cancer. Cells keep dividing regardless of any signal, and they form this mass of cell called tumor. So then the question is, if I've told you that these cells are ignoring this, so what else then? What else do cancer cells show us? One of the first things that I've been repeating, and at least I've said it 2 times now, is these cells keep dividing regardless of whether they are getting the signals or not. So normal cells will need signals for them to proliferate. What does proliferation mean? Proliferation means one cell forms two cells from 4, and so on and so forth. Cells keep dividing and increasing in number. So normal cells, unless they get these signals for proliferation, they will not divide.
No worries, we're just having some technical glitch. We will be back soon. So, Snehal asked, Bhavik asked, what is a tumor? So, tumor is like a growth.
Yes, just so like Omkar explained, just a group of cells that are growing despite the fact that they have some damage in them or some mutation in them, right?
Absolutely. We have a lot of good questions which I'd rather Omkar take. But yes, there are foods that can cause cancer, Pooja. And a classic example is smoked fish, which is eaten in many parts of East Asia, like Japan. And it was associated with stomach cancer, gastric cancer. It was because of hydrocarbons present when you smoked the fish in a particular way. So that's one classic example.
So Anushka has another question. She asks, why can't cancer cells perform apoptosis? Which is a great question. Anushka, we'll come to this in, I think, a few slides once Omkar fixes whatever issues he's having.
Yes.
But he's going to talk about this. He's going to tell us what is the difference between cancerous cells and normal healthy cells, and what goes wrong in these cancerous cells. So once you understand what goes wrong, you'll understand why they can't perform apoptosis.
Sounds great. Yes. Even smoking causes cancer, Kavish. Brilliant. Brilliant. Nicotine causes cancer, which is present in cigarette smoke. So big takeaway. Cigarette smoke is cancerous not only to the smoker, but even the person on the other end inhaling the smoke.
And now that you know that cancer is basically cells that have some mutation in them or some protein or something that has gone wrong, that shouldn't go wrong normally. Can you guess what do all of these things that cause cancer, like you say smoking causes cancer or nicotine causes cancer? What effect do you think they have on our cells? Why do you think they cause cancer? What do they change in our cells? Can anybody guess? Because now you know what causes cancer or what is the basis of cancer. So how does nicotine? Yes, Kavish, they are changing the DNA sequence. Yes. It changes, it damages the cells, correct? Exactly, right? So all of these things basically damage your cells or your DNA in some way, and it causes this cell replication that should happen in a normal rate go wrong. It goes wrong somewhere, and the cells that get damaged, instead of dying, they continue to replicate, they continue to grow. So these abnormal cells or these damaged cells are growing more and more, whereas they shouldn't be. The cancerous cells look very similar to body cells. Well, yes, in the images that you've seen right now, they're just cartoons, so they will look similar. But actually, in real life, they do look very different.
Then we have yes, animals and birds do have cancer. Yes, it's just that they have shorter lifespans than we have. Like a dog has a lifespan of 14, 15 years, but they do in the end of the life can have cancer.
Okay. So another question is, why are there so many types of cancer? So that's because it can happen in different organs, different regions of your body, right? So because cells in all parts of our body replicate normally, right? because we always need our cells to replicate, to grow, and to keep us healthy. So this damage can happen anywhere in our body, and depending on where it happens in your body, or how much the cells are damaged, what are they doing, how fast they're growing, it can cause different types of cancer.
Absolutely. Lots more questions while we are waiting for
Okay.
Omkar to join. Snehal, you might want to check your WhatsApp if he's
I am just checking with him.
So yes, Ala, usually the reason is something that changes the DNA. Food, UV radiation, prolonged exposure to sunlight in the form of UV, some infections like viruses can cause cancer. Sometimes it could just be random genetic mutation. So that's where the whole thing of is cancer hereditary comes in. And yes, there is possibly some hereditary component. Yes. Animals do get cancer like humans, Marwa, very much. So Omkar will continue, but you guys seem to be picking it up. Lots of questions. So chemotherapy is treatment of cancer. Yes, Omkar.
Hey, I'm sorry, I had to change location.
No problem, Omkar. No issues at all.
So as I was telling you guys, cancer cells will sort of duplicate, replicate, and proliferate themselves without or in the absence of any growth signals, which basically means regardless of whether you are providing them growth signals or not, you are telling them, grow, don't grow, they'll just keep growing, right? Because that's what they do. Now, the second point is death signals. Now, when I say death signals, it means both death signals and signals which tells the cell to stop growing. So anything, for example, which is telling the cell stop growing, the normal cell will respond to it. It will say, okay, I'll stop growing. The cancer cell will just ignore it. And again, we'll come to the reasons very soon, but the cancer cell will be like, no, I don't care, I'll keep growing. Now, another important concept that cancer cells exhibit and which allows them to form this tumor is this absence of this concept called contact inhibition. Now, what contact inhibition means is when a normal cell encounters another normal cell, it is a signal for that normal cell to stop growing. So the growth no longer happens. So when you have like a fully covered layer with cells, there is no more growth. The cells will just stop there and will not proliferate further. And this important property is absent in cancer cells, which is why you get these clumps of cells one over the another, and which is why you get a ball of cells, which is what we call as a tumor. So uncontrolled growth, which basically leads to this ball of cells, which we call as a tumor. One of the major reasons that happen is cancer cells do not show contact inhibition, which means that even if they are in contact with another cell, the proliferation keeps happening. Like normal cells, they will not stop growing. And chromosomes and genome is something that I talked about earlier. And as I've told you, there is a lot of damage to the chromosomes. The genome basically means the entire set of the chromosomes that a cell has, right? So the cancer cells will have a lot of damage to their DNA, which is why they are able to proliferate. And then this is a good point to then ask, okay, chromosomes are gone haywire, there is a lot of damage, but then the question is, what is this damage? And before going to that, I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions.
Okay. So I think one question that Anushka had initially, which I think you might answer later, is do cancerous cells have the ability to perform apoptosis or not?
Yes, so they have the ability to perform apoptosis. It is just that they don't. So one of the ways to treat cancer cells is by damaging them so much that they end up dying. So one of the things that I will talk eventually is something that I think I also heard the word chemotherapy, right? So chemotherapy, what it does is it will go and damage the cell so much that it cannot survive. So cancer cells in theory can apoptose, but the signaling is usually altered. It is modified such that the process does not even get triggered.
Okay. I think maybe we'll take one more question before we move ahead. And this is, I don't know if you also know the answer to this, Omkar, but it keeps popping up in the chat window.
Okay.
Can whales have cancer?
Okay. I can say from a theoretical point of view, I have never heard whales having cancer.
Okay.
So in theory, any cell which divides and which is exposed to external environment can have cancerous properties, right? So if a cell has DNA and that DNA is damaged such that the cell now cannot proliferate, that is what we call as the precursion, as a preceding step to cancer. So yes, whales can have cancer. All organisms can have cancer. It is usually that we as humans don't know that they are having cancer or not. For example, I can tell you for a fact that there is a, so the ICER campus, as Nehal will also agree, has a dog population, right? And yeah, and so one of those dogs has a tumor on the leg. Now, this I don't know whether the tumor has metastasized or not, but there is certainly a tumor on the leg. So organisms definitely will have cancer because it's not a magic thing in humans that has originated. The origin of cancer is very simple. It comes from the fact that if you have damage in the DNA, the cell can grow uncontrollably, which is what causes cancer basically. So yes, whales can have cancer in summary.
Okay, all right. I think we can move ahead and then we'll come back to some
Sure.
questions later.
Sure. All right. So now I've been talking a lot about these signals and how cancer cells will keep growing and they will not respond to anything, and how their DNA is really damaged. The question then is, what genes before coming to what genes, what can cause this sort of damage to the DNA? So obviously any change in the gene, as I've been, just a minute, let me see if I can get the pointer up. Yeah, any change to the gene that sort of dysregulates or it inhibits or it changes the way our cells grow and divide can cause cancer. So any change to gene that controls how our cells grow and divide will cause cancer. Now the reasons for this can be many. First is errors during replication, right? So when our cells divide, when there is proliferation, there is an intrinsic rate of error when our DNA replicates. So one DNA strand will form two in replicated cells and then they will again replicate. There is an intrinsic error that happens and the body has proteins which correct this error. Sometimes what may happen is these errors are skipped. They are not accounted for and they propagate. And what happens when one of these errors is in a cancer causing gene is it will lead to cancer, right? The second thing that is one of the major reasons is harmful substances. Harmful substances like tobacco, like alcohol, or naturally occurring substances like asbestos, certain oils which are found in mines. All of these substances and any other substance which can go and damage your DNA. So for example, here you have a nice DNA strand. And if this is, for example, the coding region for a gene, and you can see that there is a damage here. So any substance which can trigger such a damage in theory can cause cancer. Now, in a very small percentage of cases, it can also be inherited from parents, which means that if your parents carry a certain mutation with them, you will inherit them. So even if you are not born with cancer, there is an increased chance that you will develop cancer, because remember, we have two sets of chromosomes, right? We have 46, which is 23 plus 23. It's called 23 pairs. So if one of the, so every gene will have two copies. So if one of the gene is inherited, there is inherited as in inherited with a mutation, there is an increased chance that the second gene will also catch damage and then you will develop cancer, right? So these are three broad ways by which you can actually develop cancer. Always remember, in general, this is suddenly not really in the flow of the presentation, but cancers usually take a lot of time to develop, because cancer cells, and as I will also tell you, they are developing in a sequence of mutations that happen, right? One after the other, after the other, after the other. And over a period of time, they really become very aggressive. So this is just out of the blue, but keep this in mind that cancers usually take a fairly long time, sometimes even decades to develop. Right. Questions at this point, Amy?
I think one question that Anushka also asked, and maybe Vanishka also asked, is cancer contagious or is it communicable?
It is not in humans. So cancer is usually not contagious. If someone has cancer, it cannot be like communicated to someone else. There is one peculiar case, and I would encourage Anushka to go and read back about it. Just type Tasmanian devils in Google, right? Just Google Tasmanian devils and you will see that it's a very interesting case. We have not found anything else like this, that the cancer of the mouth they develop, this is developed by biting. So in some ways that the in Tasmanian devils cancer can be communicable, although I am not sure if we completely understand why this is happening at this stage. But it is just that one of these peculiar cases we can see that in Tasmanian devils, if there is this biting that happens, and if the biter has cancer, then the one who's receiving the bite also will develop a tumor. So that's really interesting. But in general, cancers are not communicable. No.
Okay, I think Naman was asking if you could just repeat the part about errors during replication.
All right. So maybe, okay, let me show you some slides and then I'll get back because I have a nice figure here. Yeah. So see, on the left hand side, you have one strand of DNA which will be present in a cell. For example, the parent cell, which is going to divide. Now this goes on to form two strands, right? Now this process will involve the formation of these new strands, these red colored strands. What may happen sometimes is the sequence that is there in the yellow strands might not be exactly replicated in the red strand. And eventually, if this error or if this change in sequence is not corrected by proteins, then that error will propagate. So every time now the red strand code for example, a green strand here, that green strand will have that error. Now every time the green will when it acts as a template for the black will have this error. So a error which does not get corrected at this stage in the, for example, the red strand, eventually gets processed into all of the daughter cells. And if this sort of an error happens in a gene which is important for, or which is, for example, a cancer causing gene, then chances are that all of these daughter cells will carry that mutation and will be sort of precancerous cells. They can lead to a tumor if this does not, I mean, if this keeps propagating and if it's in a gene that can cause cancer.
Okay, all right. So we'll take one more question from Marva before we move on.
Right.
Her question is, can cancer cells just stop doing everything that they're doing that's wrong and just become normal cells?
Ooh, yeah. I don't think they can. See, the thing is, because a lot of the damage that happens is an irreversible process. So if the damage has sustained, chances are that some information has gotten deleted. And so there is no way you can get back that information. For example, Marva, now if I tell you that in this figure that I am showing, this black region, for example, gets deleted out, and the two strands, so there's just a deletion and the two strands connect back. Now what has happened is the information that was there in these in the sequence that these black bars represent has been lost. So there is no way we can synthesize back this information. And so a cancer cell cannot, in most cases, come back to where it was. Yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But
so it's like if all of you are copying notes from somebody in your class, and that person just rips out a page.
Yes.
No matter how many times you copy it, how many times you try to go back, you're never going to get those notes that were lost.
Though that's a very good analogy. That's perfect. Yes.
Okay, we can move on, Omkar.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So now again, I've been talking a lot about genes and damages. Here we move on to what I call the second module, right? Some genes can cause and some genes prevent cancer. The question is, what are these genes? I mean, what do these genes do? Why are they even causing cancer? There are in number, there are a lot of these genes, but they fall into basically these three criteria. One, and the names are fairly self-explanatory, so shouldn't be an issue. First category, tumor promoting genes. Second category, tumor suppressor genes. And third category, DNA repair. Now I'm going to tell you in detail one by one how cancer is caused, but just for the sake of information here, remember that tumor promoting genes, as in normal condition, they help the cells to grow and divide, which means they will signal the cells to grow, they will allow the cells to grow, they will allow cells to take in nutrients which are required and all the other things. Tumor suppressor genes control in the sense inhibit, so they will prevent cells from dividing. So they are in some ways the opposite of the tumor promoting genes. By the way, tumor promoting genes are also called as proto-oncogenes. Now, oncos, I think it's a term originating from Greek. It means a swelling, right? So a tumor is a swelling that you can see. So onkos means swelling, and so an oncogene means something that causes swelling, and a proto-oncogene means something that is not yet causing but has the potential to cause cancer. So proto is primitive, right? So it's in some ways it's a primitive oncogene which currently in normal healthy circumstances is not causing cancer, but if it gets mutated, it can become a oncogene or a tumor promoting gene, right? So I've told you about tumor promoting genes. They'll just very nicely help the cells to divide, to grow, and to proliferate. Tumor suppressors are the exact opposite. They'll prevent that. And DNA repair genes is what I've been telling you. So if there is an error, the cell has mechanisms to correct these. DNA repair genes code for proteins that fix the damage to the DNA. So they'll actually go scan the individual DNA strands, see if there is an error, and fix that error. And so there is a mutation in these DNA repair genes, chances are that these errors propagate, right? Is this okay? Is this okay with everybody? Otherwise, I'll repeat something if needed.
Certainly, Umang. Maybe we can ask any questions
Any questions at this point?
about this part.
After this, I'm going to go into how each of these is doing its bit in causing cancer, which is actually very interesting.
Okay,
Pooja.
so Pooja has a question. She asks,
Yes.
how do they fix the error?
Yeah, that's a very elaborate molecular biology questions. I mean, we can have 3 talks exclusively on how the proteins fix this. So usually what happens is, one of the simplest way to do it is so for example, there is this bonding that happens between the DNA strands. Now if there is a error in the sequence, that bonding will not happen, and so there will be a nice loop such that bonding will not happen. Now the protein can go and detect, okay, there's a loop here, this means something is wrong, and now it rips that individual base out and it puts the correct one in. So now there is no loop. And there are many other ways to do it. It's a good question, but another way, for example, to do it is okay, I think it really become technical. So I think it relies on how the bonding between the 2 strands of the DNA happens. If there's an error in that, then the proteins can actually detect a change in structure and stuff like that.
Okay, I think that's good. Yes, we can go ahead. I don't
Right.
see any further questions now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the first thing and the first category of genes that we are going to look at are these so-called tumor promoting genes or proto-oncogenes. So now this is going to be an analogy. Let's keep it simple. You have a circuit. We all have a circuit. There's a bulb, there's a switch, and there's a battery. What will happen if I turn the switch on? Very easy. Simple question. The bulb will glow. As long as the battery has power, the bulb will keep glowing. Now what will happen if I take it back? Again, very easy. The bulb will stop glowing, right? So this is a simple case where you turn the switch on, the bulb glows. You turn the switch off, the bulb stops glowing. The circuit is incomplete. Now imagine what would happen if you cannot turn the switch off. So you turn the switch on, the bulb glows, but there is a defect in the switch, you cannot turn it off. So it will just keep, so what will happen is the circuit will keep glowing, the bulb will keep glowing as long as the battery has the power to give it. Now imagine that the bulb glowing is similar to cell proliferation and the switch is similar to the proteins that help cells grow and divide. So these proteins have a switch. They can be turned on and they can be turned off. So for example, there's a protein and there is something that you add on to that protein, the protein becomes active. You remove that molecule, the protein becomes inactive. So now I tell you that there is a protein which you activate and you cannot deactivate it, which means that it will keep signaling. So if there's a damage to the DNA that prevents the protein from switching off, then the circuit will keep complete and the cell proliferation will keep happening. So the switch is like proteins that promote cell growth and the bulb is like cell proliferation. So if you have a damaged protein where you cannot switch it off, the cells will keep proliferating and what you will end up is this nice mass of cells. So a damage or a mutation that occurs in the DNA that leads to the production of faults in these specific proteins which help the cell to grow and to divide such that now they cannot be switched off, the cells will keep dividing. Now imagine regardless of whether you are telling the cell to divide or not, there's a protein inside which is helping the cell to divide regardless. And this is where I kept saying that it doesn't matter whether you have signals that are telling the cell to divide. Since the molecule inside is active, the cell thinks that, okay, I am actually receiving a signal. And so because this molecule now cannot be switched off, you will keep having cell division, right? Is this okay? So you have a cancer causing agent which goes and tampers your DNA. There's a proto-oncogene. Now it's an activated oncogene. It will keep telling the cells to divide, and you'll have a nice mass of cells, which we call as a tumor. So this is how damage in a proto-oncogene or a tumor promoting gene will cause cancer. Questions?
So they're comparing the battery's death to like their laptop batteries dying and
sure.
Right.
What I could compare it to is also if you stop eating your food, then there's no energy to grow, so the cells will stop growing.
Absolutely. And Omkar, that means all food. It doesn't mean just eating modak.
Oh, eat everything, all vegetables.
Because we're in that zone right now, right? Like where food is equivalent to modak.
Yes,
Like-
definitely. All food.
So they're appreciating your analogy, Omkar.
Oh, thank
Prafulla
you.
is saying nice analogy. Okay, then we can
Yeah.
move on, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, I don't see any questions for now. Yes.
Right. Okay. So then let's move ahead. So now that we are okay with knowing how tumor promoting genes cause cancer, let's see how the second category, which is the tumor suppressor genes, is causing cancer. Now, as I told you, tumor suppressor genes do the exact opposite function of tumor promoting genes, which means these genes encode protein that normally prevent cells from proliferating. They inhibit the cell division. They will tell the cell, okay, stop dividing, right? And so a damage to a tumor suppressor gene basically means you no longer have a brake to cell division. Brake in the sense, the car accelerator brake analogy is what I'm talking about here. So as you can see in the figure, a lot of factors, growth factors, can promote cell division by signaling. So they'll bind to this receptor, and there will be two more molecules which will ultimately tell the cell to proliferate. What these tumor suppressor proteins will do is go and individually inhibit each of them. Now, there are many tumor suppressor proteins, by the way. So all of these molecules are capable of inhibiting these signaling molecules at different levels. So one class of molecules will inhibit this, another one inhibit this, and so on and so forth. So these molecules will inhibit these signaling molecules, which means they'll deactivate them, and so there will not be any cell proliferation. So another way to understand this is you have a vehicle, right? In that vehicle, in the normal circumstance, a tumor suppressor is like a brake, like I was talking about, and a proto-oncogene or a tumor suppressor gene is like an accelerator. So unless there is a signal to grow, the accelerator and hence the proto-oncogene, they are mostly turned off. And these brakes are working in the sense there is controlled growth. Whenever there is signal, there is acceleration, and then there is a brake. What happens when mutations happen is there is the brake is defective. There is no brake, and so you can't stop. And the accelerator or the proto-oncogenes are jammed in the sense now that the accelerator is pressed, there is no brake, so the vehicle will just keep moving, which is analogous to the cell will keep dividing. The cell does not have a brake to stop, so it will just keep dividing. So in a normal cell circumstance, the proto-oncogene is like a gas, the tumor suppressor is like a brake, and so you can either have a case, as I'm telling you, where there is too much gas because the proto-oncogene is now active, or there is no brake. Now I would like to ask you something. What happens if both of these occur? If you have a lot of gas and you have no brake. So regardless, now what happens is something, so you have a car now, which is just moving forward, and there is no way to stop the car. And in most cancers, anything, a mutation which leads to a tumor is usually driven by these two hits, which means there is a mutation in the protein that allows the cell to grow. There is also a mutation in the protein which prevents. So the protein which helps the cells to grow will just keep functioning, and the gene which prevents the cell from dividing is no longer functional. So you have continuous cell division, right? This is how tumor suppressors work. So you damage tumor suppressor, you no longer have things that prevent cell division. And if there are any questions here.
So Omkar, they're appreciating the analogy and they're saying things like it goes boink
Yeah,
when you have too much gas and no break. They say
boink is an understatement.
statement.
It
Truly.
it will go bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah, so they say car crash, cancer, airbags. I mean, you'll reach a place where you'll need to deploy airbags.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure,
it'll be
certainly,
that bad.
Certainly.
Yeah. So, and of course, Nirali appreciates the analogy. So what you're saying, Omkar, usually full-blown cancer needs both these hits.
Yes. So usually what happens is if you have one of them, the cancer does not still have the full ability to keep dividing. It is only when you have both of these mutations that the cancer really becomes aggressive. It will form a tumor. It will also invade other parts of the body. There are enhanced chances because now that you do not have the brake and you have the jammed accelerator, you can just keep dividing, right? And such that until you have nutrients, you'll just keep dividing. Yeah.
It's like your brake malfunctions,
Yeah.
and for some reason your leg is stuck to the accelerator with some Fevibond
Yes.
that you can't take off.
You
Like, I
can't
mean,
take it off.
yeah. So
So now
matlab,
you're
गाड़ी is just going. Brake nahi hai and accelerator is full press.
Yes.
Hmm.
So as long as your tank has gas, the car will keep moving.
Exactly. Wow. Okay, the conversation has gone a little beyond our scope into gas and poop and stuff like that. But
Okay.
Omkar, these are very hot topics.
I can imagine.
All right, but we can move on. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I do see Raghav has some interesting point about smelling poop. I'm just gonna leave it to some other days of discussion.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna now move on to the last category of genes, which I've talked about before. And these are these DNA repair genes. Now, already somebody has asked a very smart question of how these work. So I've already given you an idea. But if somebody is not clear, imagine you have a street, right? You have a normal functioning street, people there, activities happening, shops opening. Let's imagine pre-COVID times where there weren't any restrictions on how people can move and how many can fit in a shop, etc., etc. And in order to ensure peace in this locality, you need 5 policemen, right? If there are 5 policemen taking care, there is no mischief or misbehavior happening here. Everything is nice, everybody is happy, people are coming, walking in, dining, shopping, whatever they want to do. They are doing, everything is well and good. Now imagine what will happen if 2 of the policemen are sick for a month and they don't have a replacement. Obviously, there is no necessity that a mischief or a misbehavior may happen, but there is an enhanced chance that if such a behavior does happen, the person will get away with it. So for example, somebody decides to rob a shop. Now if there are 5 policemen, chances are that robbery will get caught. But if now you have only 3, and if the person goes to a shop where there is no sort of security, chances are that the person will rob it and nobody will be aware of it, right? The person will just get away. This is exactly what happens during DNA repair. So these DNA repair proteins that I've been talking about act as policemen, right? So after every round of replication, they will go and scan this entire duplicated molecule of DNA such that if there is any mischief or misbehavior, in the sense, if there is any error which is happening during this process, then these will go, they'll catch the error and they'll fix it. Now imagine what happens if 2 of the 5 proteins are non-functional. Non-functional because remember I told you they might be damaged because of mutations. So now if there is a damage to the gene which codes for a faulty protein which cannot function, it basically means that the chances of errors propagating increases. So if the genes making this repair protein get damaged, then the chances of errors during replication increase, which again is a precursor to increased chances of cancer. So anything and everything which leads to a damaged DNA can technically cause cancer. And DNA repair genes are these backbone, right? They will go and they will actually check everything to see if everything as in the duplication has been or the replication has been okay or not. If you now tamper with these proteins such that they can no longer check if the process is going okay, then you have a real problem, because now there is no way you can check if there are errors or not. And once this happens, there is just I think 10 times more chance that they'll have an error which gets propagated to the daughter cells, right? So this is how if you alter DNA repair genes, this is what happens. Now, obviously, it's okay to think about these as individual points. What I would encourage everybody to do is consider what happens when all of these happen together. So now you have a case, for example, where you have a damaged proto-oncogene or a tumor suppressor gene, which tells the cell to keep dividing. You have a damaged tumor suppressor gene, which means that you don't have a break. And now already there is a lot of cell division. And now you also have a case where the repair proteins are dysfunctional. These are all extremely good platforms for cell to become cancerous and to proliferate like crazy and to form this nice mass of cells. Also appreciate the fact that once you have a mutation in these repair proteins, you can keep mutating and there is no stopping you, right? You can just keep mutating your DNA to new and new properties. You can develop resistance to all kinds of drugs and they won't be fixed because there is no protein that will come and fix this. So a cancer usually progresses in the clinician's definition to other parts of the body when a lot of these defects or hits happen simultaneously. So you have a hit here, you have a hit there, and you have a hit in the third place. All of this cumulates into a cell which does not care about whether there is signal or not, which does not care whether it's in the vicinity of other cells or not. It just keeps dividing, right? And ask me questions here because after this, the discussion is going to be rather brief and about a very advanced concept called metastasis. So questions.
Thank you, Omkar.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very nicely paced. Omkar, Ala asks a great question.
Yes.
What if RNA gets damaged and not DNA? Can RNA damage cause cancer?
That is very, see, because RNA damage, what will happen is the molecule of RNA, when it codes for protein, it is destroyed after that. So that RNA molecule will not survive after coding for a particular protein or a few proteins. What the DNA damage is doing is it will keep making faulty RNAs and it will keep making faulty proteins. So since the RNA is an intermediary step, a damaged RNA, it will, okay, sure, I can agree that if not destroyed by the cell, it can code for a faulty protein. But after a certain amount of protein has been made, the RNA gets destroyed. So now you need to make fresh RNA from that DNA. And if that fresh RNA does not have a defect, then we don't have a problem.
Right. It's like intermediary steps in making something, right?
Yes.
Like kind of, I can see that. Yeah. If you're doing milk, khoa, to make kheer.
Yes.
If you spoil the khoa, that kheer batch will get spoiled. But if you start all over again from milk, then your kheer will be good to go.
Yeah.
So kind of that way.
Yes.
Abhi muh mein pani aa gaya type of situation. Okay. Many questions, Nehal and Omkar. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I think another question was about if different viruses can cause cancer.
That's who has asked this question?
Okay, let me just go check. I think it was Kavish. Yes.
Because this is really good. So virus initially, when people did not, let's go into a history for a few minutes. When people did not know these genetic causes of cancer, people thought that viruses are causing cancer because a lot of cancers that were discovered were caused by viruses. And yes, so the answer to the question is yes, viruses, not all, but some particular viruses do cause cancer. So viruses, remember, will integrate their genomes into yours or take your genome and then replicate it and do stuff with it. So if a virus comes and tampers with a gene, it plays around with its function, then that viral infection will cause the cell to become cancerous. And there are many examples. There is human papilloma virus, which causes cervical cancer. There is hepatitis B virus, which causes liver cancer. And there are many more examples of viruses which cause. So for example, a lot of proteins, for example, one of these proteins, which of these proto-oncogenes, now that we are on it, is called RAS, right? It's called RAS. RAS basically stands for rat sarcoma virus protein. So that protein got discovered when a viral infection was happening to a rat and the rat developed a tumor, right? And so viruses cause cancer. And initially the scientists thought that cancer has a viral origin, but now we have figured out that viruses are also causing cancer because they are damaging the DNA. Yeah, but that's a really good question. Yeah.
So it's more like they just cause damage to the DNA.
Yes,
Ultimately, cancer is caused by
Yes.
changes or mutations in your DNA.
The
Just like we
fundamental,
talked about how nicotine causes cancer,
Correct,
right? It's not
correct.
nicotine that's causing
Yes.
cancer, it's just causing damage to your cells.
correct. So what nicotine does, it also goes and hits your DNA. Right? So every time you have tobacco, you have nicotine, it will go and hit your DNA, such that if now not repaired, or if the cell does not decide to commit suicide and it keeps proliferating, then that causes cancer. So all of these agents will fundamentally cause a damage to your DNA, and that ultimately leads to cancer. A lot of ways can do that, and viruses are one of them. Very correct. Yeah.
Okay. So Naman has a really nice question. His question is, why does our immune system not fight these cancerous cells?
They do. So cancer cells originate very frequently in our bodies. That's a fantastic question. Yes, cancer cells will originate, something will go wrong in normal cells, and the immune cells, very, as you rightly pointed out, fights these out. What happens when something like, as I told you, a multiple hit model happens is, these proteins either hide from the immune system, or always remember, as the immune system has activators, the immune system will also have inhibitors, which tell the immune system to calm down. Otherwise, we will develop autoimmune disorders. So you need to keep the immune system in check also. And one of the ways cancers sort of get past immune system is they start showing these inhibitors. And now the immune system thinks, okay, we are no longer required to function here. And that is one of the ways cancers hide from the immune system. The other way to do it, they will display normal proteins on their surfaces. So the immune system will think, remember, the immune system recognizes our own cells, right? It will recognize what is self versus what is non-self. Remember, cancer cells are originating from self. So in theory, they were basically a part of our normal functioning bodies. Just because something has gone wrong, now that cancer cells have gone bizarre. So chances are that cancer cells will still show proteins on their surfaces which are normal, and so the immune system will not be able to recognize this. That said, a lot of these defense mechanisms exist which prevent cancer from developing before we even know it. So immune system takes care of this. You are right.
So it's like your analogy, Omkar, of the police. If the
Yes.
two chores come dressed like police,
Yes.
then the other three police are going to say, "Arey, apne hi log hain wahan pe,
Yes,
rehne
that's
do
correct.
unko" types.
Yes, yes.
But actually, they'll
absolutely.
be out there to do mischief and damage.
Yes,
Hmm.
that's perfect.
Okay. So have you made this cancer story a chore police saga? Close.
That's a really nice idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can go ahead, Omkar, and
Okay.
then we'll take questions again towards the
Okay.
end.
Okay, now the Chor Police saga is a really interesting point to be made at this stage, because I'm going to tell you something that connects evolution and cancer after this slide. So, okay, so now that we know that, okay, I've told you that cancers originate a certain way. There are mutations which promote their growth. There are mutations which, allow them to proliferate regardless of what is happening. But the question then is, what next? What happens if this keeps happening? Eventually what will happen is the cancer cells will develop properties which allows them to infiltrate other tissues. This is called invasion. Invasion is something that you don't belong here, but you are going and sitting there, right? So cancer cells develop this property of invasion such that whether regardless of whether they are developing, they will start infiltrating nearby tissue, nearby healthy tissue. And if this goes to a point where they enter a blood vessel or they enter a lymph node, such that, for example, a primary cancer which is developed in the colon here goes to the lung, we call this process metastasis, which means the cancer cells originating from this primary site, the original site is called primary tumor. Remember this is important. So if a cell from a primary tumor enters a blood vessel and goes to a site where it should not be, so it's a colon cell sitting in the lung, for example, these are so poised to replicate and develop that even if in a new organ they are capable to form tumors, right? These are called secondary tumors. So clump of cells or even single cells originating from the primary tumor, traveling through the blood vessels, sitting in a new site and able to develop more of these clumps is what we call metastasis. So if you look at the origin, it basically means transition from one place to another. And so eventually, as these cancer cells keep dividing, keep gathering more and more mutations, they develop these properties called invasive and metastatic properties, where now they are able to escape this primary site, go to a secondary site and make new tumors. And this is where therapy becomes really difficult, especially by surgery. If you have a tumor which is localized to a place, for example, if you have a breast tumor, you know that it has not metastasized, and so you can take the lump out and the cancer probably will not progress, right? You kill the cells. If the cancer has metastasized to other parts of the body, how many you can't open the entire body, right? You have to perform a surgery in a small localized portion. So if cancer has metastasized, surgery is usually not an option because there are so many lumps everywhere. They've light from lung to liver to brain, that it is usually called a third or a fourth grade cancer, which is really progressed to a very late stage. And these cells are very notorious. They have achieved so many, they have gathered so many mutations that they can probably resist most of the drugs that you put in. So anyway, that's a separate discussion. But a benign tumor versus a malignant tumor, as I told you initially, a benign tumor will not invade because it probably does not have so many mutations to develop these properties. A malignant tumor will invade neighboring tissue. It will enter your lymphatic vessels, bloodstream, and eventually colonize a different site. This is the basic of metastasis. Questions at this point?
Okay, so I don't see questions specifically to metastasis, but there are a lot of questions on therapies and treatments.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. That's my next and the last slide. Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay,
I
so
think maybe we
maybe-
can go
maybe-
through this slide then. and
Maybe
then we'll
after
take
this.
questions.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So now I've told you how cancer will develop, a few of the ways the genes get affected, and um, what will happen if this keeps happening. Eventually metastasis happens, and this is what clinicians, I keep telling you, this is what clinicians will call cancer, when the disease has actually metastasized to other places. And so the aim of any therapy, remember, cancer cells have originated from our own self cells, right? So the aim of any of this therapy is to selectively destroy cancer cells. You try to destroy only cancer cell with minimal effects on our normal cells. And one of the best ways to do this, as most of you might know, is surgery, right? If you have a localized lump of cells, it's a localized tumor of cells, you can actually take the tumor out, maybe a little bit of surrounding tissue also, so that now you know definitely that all of the cancerous cells have been taken out. The tissue will recover and there is no more source of cancerous cells, so you are good. The other way to do it, and this is usually applied when the cancer has metastasized a little bit, is chemotherapy. Now, chemo means chemicals, right? So chemotherapy basically means you inject chemicals or drugs in the body, which will prevent the growth or the division of cancer cells. So one of the key ways to do this is many drugs, they go and hit actively dividing cells, and that is why many of you will see that after chemotherapy people lose hair, because a lot of hair cells are actively dividing cells, and when these drugs hit actively dividing cells, they don't see whether their cells are cancerous or self cells. They will just destroy all the cells that are actively dividing. So cells in your intestine, for example, which have a lot of wear and tear, so they keep dividing, these cells get affected after chemotherapy. And chemotherapy, you might know a few drugs also. For example, one of the most well-known breast cancer drugs is Herceptin, right? These are used to treat triple negative breast cancer cells, or for example, inhibitors like EGFR inhibitors. But these are technical terms. The message here is chemotherapy means chemicals or drugs which you inject in the body and which will prevent the growth and development of cancer cells. Radiation is also very similar. Now, radiation can actually be external or internal. Sometimes you have an external beam of radiation being thrown on this localized tumor, which will kill off these cells. Again, see, the interesting thing is how radiation works is it will damage your cancer cells so much that the cancer cell just cannot survive, it has to die. So eventually the apoptosis question gets answered here, that the radiation will hit your DNA of your cancer cells so much that even basic functions like glycolysis, metabolism, or energy intake and energy production will get affected. So you cannot have a cell which survives. And radiation does this. Radiation, for example, can include things like X-rays, gamma rays, or other electron beams and stuff like that. You can go into the details later. But the point here is you have to you target cells which specifically, and one of the advantages of radiation is hit it locally. So if you have a cancer developing in, for example, your arm, you can actually just have a radiation hitting here. So usually the side effects are not seen. But then again, since it's a radiation, it can affect other things also. Immunotherapy. Okay. Is there a question here or should I complete?
Yes, Omkar, sorry, I thought you were stopping, Omkar. But since you were on radiation, Mirali
Yeah.
had a great question.
Okay.
She says, radiation can stop cell growth of cancerous cells, kill cancerous cells, but the same radiation we say causes cancer.
Yes. So again, the extent is different. So for example, the UV radiations that we have when we stand outside, like they also damage DNA. Now imagine what will happen if I give you a UV light and smash all of that into one localized area. That will also, so you are very right. This radiation will affect a little bit of surrounding normal tissue as well. But then the hope is that the effect on the cancer cells is localized. So there are side effects, not saying no, but chances are that when you locally hit it on a lump of cells, there is no surrounding healthy tissue there, and you only manage to kill that cells in the lump. And always remember that things like these work in combination. It's never like radiation will alone cure everything. You will first give it chemotherapy, you'll also treat it with radiation, and so you have now two things which are basically treating the same thing. And so that way the effects are better. But it's a very good point that yes, radiation can also affect surrounding normal tissue and potentially cause cancer. Correct. Really good question.
Okay, I think I don't see any more questions coming in.
Right.
Okay, so I think if there was something you wanted to wrap up with, Omkar, you
Yes,
can.
there are the last couple of points
yeah.
that I wanted to speak
Sure.
before
Yeah.
we can take more questions. So immunotherapy. Now, there was a question about doesn't immune system kill our cancer cells? It's very easy. We have immune system in the body, just go and kill cancer cells. Immune system, immune therapy basically does that. It will intercept in such ways that the immune system can now function. So one of the ways to do this is they are called checkpoint inhibitors, right? So they will go and inhibit these inhibitors. So the cancer cells, as I told you, are showing that these inhibitors to immune system. Now you put a drug where these inhibitors are suppressed. So the immune cells can actually infiltrate and kill off the tumor. Another way is you can take some cells out of this tumor. You can actually culture them and put them back so that now there is a big load of immune cells near your tumor and they can kill it. So there are at least 3-4 more ways to kill tumor cells using altering immune system and helping it to attack cancer better. The last thing is targeted therapy, which is basically very close to something called as precision medicine, which means that a treatment modality is decided based on what cancer I have or somebody else has or a patient has. So something called as a biopsy is done, where you take a small portion of the cancer, you see its properties, and then you decide what cancer modalities you want to apply to that particular patient. So targeted therapy usually uses many approaches. It also, right from immunotherapy to radiation therapy to everything, but it is a more general concept where you have exact information pertaining to a particular person and extracting that information and then designing designing the therapy module for that particular person. All right, that is all that I have to say, and this is my last slide. This is for next time, I think.
Okay, thank you so much, Omkar. This has been a really, really amazing session.